We have got Ms. Portia Nkambule. She's replacing the SAPRA CEO. Ms. Nkambule is the Chief Regulatory Officer at SAPRA. She's a pharmacist with a master's degree in public health and has been with the regulator for more than 20 years. We also have Prof. Haneli Meyer. Prof. Meyer is the chair of the National Immunization Safety Expert Committee, and she's also head of the South African Vaccines and Immunization Center at Sefako Mohato Health Sciences University. We also have Ms. Mafora Matlala. She is SAPRA's Pharmacovigilance Manager. And lastly, from the National Department of Health, we've got Marion Skonfeld. Marion Skonfeld is a pharmaceutical policy specialist with the National Department of Health. With that, I will hand over to Ms. Portia to give us the opening remarks. Over to you, Portia. If you are speaking, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tlatswayo. Yes, I was on mute. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting us, for this webinar, exciting webinar that talks to, safety monitoring of medicines, talking mostly to vaccines. And as we know, medicine serves as a useful tool in healthcare. And the monitoring of these medicines, including vaccine safety, is an important component of healthcare. And the realization of potential of the monitoring of medicine safety has led to its establishment of an important health discipline, which is what we call pharmacovigilance now. And that pharmacovigilance is defined as the science and activities relating to the detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse drug reactions and other drug-related problems. So I wouldn't dwell much into what pharmacovigilance entails, as my colleague Flora, who's on the panel, will dwell more into this, where she will talk to detection, what we mean by detection, and then the assessment, where Prof. Haneli Meyer will come in and talk to us about how these reported AEFIs will be assessed, and also the issue that talks to education and training, including prevention. As I've indicated, that all the tools are very important that talks to the reporting of the signals, and my colleague Flora will talk to those tools that includes the Med Safety app, the e-reporting portal on the SAPRA website, including what we call the paper-based system that she will talk more into, how does that feed into the Med Safety app and so forth. And as indicated that Professor Haneli, who's the chair of the NISEC committee, which is the National Immunization Safety Expert Committee, I will be talking to the assessment of the AEFIs as reported. And just to also mention that the NISEC is a non-statutory standing ministerial committee appointed that is responsible for review of assessment of all reported serious and severe adverse events following immunization, and review of individual serious and unusual AEFIs, and perform causality and SAPRA is also represented in this committee where this adverse events causality assessment is being conducted. What we also see as SAPRA is the pharmacovigilance communication, which is also key. And what has happened with regards to this matter is that we have a steering committee, PV committee, steering committee, that comprises of SAPRA members and GCIS members, and including the Department of Health. And this steering committee meets frequently to discuss issues that deals with pharmacovigilance, including the AEFIs. And we've also launched the microsite. I think that is launched on the which is on the SAPRA website, which my colleague Flora will talk to. And what we also looked at as SAPRA is the frequent publication of the AEFI data that would have been reported, the ADR data reported, including the vaccinations that has also been, that would have also been done. And still talking to the pharmacovigilance strategy that we have as SAPRA, we have established as SAPRA together with our stakeholders. We will be issuing newsletters or news alert that talks to pharmacovigilance, education, and also the basic concepts related to AEFIs, talking to causality reporting and so forth. And we'll be having frequent webinars where healthcare workers and public will be invited to join these webinars. And we've also issued what we call a frequently asked questions document that was published on the 23rd of July, 2021, that talks to the issues of AEFI monitoring. And internationally, SAPRA is a member of World Health Organization Collaboration Center for Drug Monitoring, that is the Uppsala Monitoring Center. And this center's vision is to improve worldwide patient safety and welfare by reducing the risk of medicines. And how this is done is by collecting and analyzing individual case reports worldwide that would have been reported by member states, that is regulatory authorities, and they communicate potential patient safety issues, and they also actively support and provide training in pharmacovigilance. And we are also a member of an ICMRA platform. This is the International Coalition of Medicines Regulatory Authorities, which is a voluntary executive level strategy coordinating advocacy and leadership entity of regulatory authorities that works together to address current and emerging human medicine regulatory, including safety challenges globally, if there are any, and strategically and in an ongoing and transparent, authoritative and institutional manner. We are also a member of the SADC regulatory authorities, where we meet on bi-weekly basis to discuss any issues that talks to COVID-related, pandemic, including the safety issues that would have been reported, the AEFIs and the ICs. And we are also a member of the AU3S program, that is the Smart Safety Surveillance that is developed by NEPAD under the umbrella of the African Union to look at the issues that talks to safety. So with all that said, Chair, I just want to welcome all the participants on this call and thank them for taking their time to participate in this webinar. And with all that said, thank you. Chair, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much, Portia, for that wonderful welcome and also the overview of SAPRA and the associations that are associated with SAPRA, and also the relevance to the topic for today. Now, as you have alluded to, first on our panelists will be Ms. Flora Mashala. I think I'll take this opportunity to remind our panelists to please put their videos on when they speak. And Ms. Mashala will speak to she'll speak to adverse events following immunizations, and she'll also speak to issues around local and international statistics, and also ways of reporting adverse events following immunizations. Ms. Flora, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sibusiso, and good morning to everyone who's watching. I'm just waiting for my video to come. Okay. All right, I'm just going to share a few slides. Okay, Sibusiso, please confirm if you can see my slides.
Yes, we can see your slides. The only thing I'll ask is if it's possible, can you put them on presentation mode?
Yes, I will, sure.
Thank you, Flora.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, and good morning to everyone who's watching, who had an opportunity to come and to listen to us as we share the information regarding the self-reporting of suspected adverse drug reactions and adverse events following immunization. So my name is Flora, as I've already been introduced. So on this presentation, I'll particularly be paying more attention into the reporting tool, which is the MedSafety app that SAPRA has actually acquired and launched in April 2021 to improve and increase reporting of adverse events following immunization and adverse drug reactions following the use of medicines. And this was actually launched as a result of the rollout of the vaccines, just to ensure that everyone in South Africa will have the opportunity to report at the comfort of their homes. So as it has already been indicated that I'm the pharmacovigilance manager, I thought I should take a bit of time just to give a bit of background with regards to pharmacovigilance. What is pharmacovigilance? So pharmaco basically, it means the drug, and the vigilare, it means to keep watch. So it means we are watching the performance of the medicines on the market. So as Portia has highlighted, the definition thereof, the scientific definition, basically it means that there's the science and the activities that are relating to detection. Detection basically means how do we get this information? How do we detect these adverse events or adverse drug reactions? And the assessment is when we go through this and then we look into it and see, is it really related or not related to the use of the medicines? And the understanding thereof, what are the mechanisms that are involved with regards to the appearance of what we're seeing, and how do we prevent this adverse effects or any other drug-related problems. So this definition is provided by the WHO. So what is it that we actually are trying to look for when we say we watch this medicine's performance? So we look for the adverse drug events or the adverse drug reactions. And I thought it's of importance just to provide a bit of background with regards to what is the difference between the two, so that it can be clear to everyone to understand what is the difference. So an adverse drug event, basically, it's any untoward medical occurrence in a patient administered medicines that may present during treatment with that medicines. But what's important is to note that it does not necessarily have a relationship, a causal relationship with this treatment. So an adverse event is very broad. It's a descriptive term, and it includes anything that can happen when a patient is taking a particular treatment. Then what is a reaction compared to what we call an adverse event? So a reaction is noxious and it's unintended response to a medicines. So it can include lack of efficacy, it can occur at normal doses, and it can also result from overdose, misuse, or abuse of a medicines. It may be a known side effect of a medicines or a vaccine. It may be new, or it may be something that was not previously recognized. So the difference between the two is that an adverse drug reaction, contrary to an event, it's characterized by the occurrence of a suspected causal relationship between the drug and the reaction. Hence, I highlighted the two parts in green to say an event, excuse me, does not necessarily have a causal relationship with the treatment. However, with the adverse drug reaction, there's a suspected causal relationship between the two. And I've actually provided a picture here, which actually indicates that an adverse drug reaction is a broad term and it includes adverse drug reactions. So what we receive in the system is actually adverse drug events. However, when we do the assessment, we are trying to identify those that are actually adverse drug reactions to say, yes, definitely there's a suspected causal relationship between the drug and the reaction. So I'm hoping that at least there's a distinction and people will be able to understand what is the difference between an adverse event and adverse drug reaction. So what are we aiming when we perform this pharmacovigilance? We're aiming to detect if there's any increase in the frequency of the known adverse drug reactions or adverse drug events. So for instance, in the package insert, you'll find that they will indicate that a headache, it appears on a common level, but then as we continue with pharmacovigilance, we monitor the occurrence of this headache adverse drug reaction or adverse event, and then you find that with time, that the common part of it, then it changes to very common or rare or something of that nature. So that's when we actually look at the frequency of these known adverse drug reactions. Then secondly, what we're trying to do is early detection of unknown adverse drug reactions or adverse events, and if there's any drug interactions. So that is very important actually, because when we do clinical trials, then certain adverse drug reactions or adverse events, they are not actually identified, those that are rare or those that take long time to occur. Then with pharmacovigilance, that's an opportunity for us then to look more closer into the medicine's performance to see if there's anything that we missed during clinical trials that we need now to bring it to the attention of the public. That's one of the reasons why we do pharmacovigilance. Then thirdly, we need to identify the risk factors. Who are at risk of a certain adverse event or a certain adverse drug reactions, and what are the possible mechanisms that are underlying the occurrence of those adverse drug reactions or events. And then furthermore, we do estimation of quantitative aspects of the benefit risk analysis. That's where we determine whether a drug is supposed to be in the market or not, following its approval based on what we're seeing in terms of the reports that we're receiving. Then we do what we call benefit risk analysis of that product. And then lastly, we disseminate information to the public, to healthcare professionals to improve the drug prescribing of their particular medicines. Then the objectives there of pharmacovigilance, we want to improve the safety in relation to the medicines that are being used, and then as well as the paramedical and all medical care and interventions. And then what's of importance is to improve public health and safety in relation to the use of the medicines. So that is the most fundamental thing about pharmacovigilance, so that the public can understand what is it that is being, what takes place with regards to the medicines that they're taking. And then we contribute to the assessment of the benefit, the harm, effectiveness, and risk of those medicines. And lastly, which is very important, is to promote understanding, clinical training, and effective communication to healthcare professionals and the public. Then how do we do this pharmacovigilance? What are the activities that are involved? So we're going to start at the top, where we do collection. And collection basically is all about reporting of adverse drug reactions or adverse events. Then once we have collected this information, we collate it into a system, and we have a system in place that was developed by WHO that we call the VigiFlow system. However, because of the MedSafety app, then there's another system that we call the Vigilance Hub, which is the backside of the MedSafety app. So we have the two systems and they are interconnected. So the information ultimately it lands into one system, and we do the analysis. And then after doing the analysis, then we do the assessments. And the assessments, that's when I indicated that we're trying to determine the relationship between the adverse event and the medicines itself. And then we do what we call a signal. A signal basically it's information, it's the safety information that was previously not understood, or the new information, and then you need more investigation into this to understand the relationship between the medicines and the reaction that have been identified. Then we do risk communications, and then after risk communications, then prevention of adverse drug reactions, and then it continues. So it's a continuous cycle that takes place, and these are the activities for pharmacovigilance. Then in terms of collection of adverse drug reactions, we've got tools that are in place for reporting adverse drug reactions and adverse events. So we've got the MedSafety app, which is basically the main topic about this presentation. And then we have the e-reporting. The e-reporting is basically available on the SAPRA website. And we also have the paper-based system. So the e-reporting is an add-on onto the system that I spoke to, the VigiFlow system. You can report anything on the e-reporting if you go on the SAPRA website and then you look for reporting an adverse drug reaction or an adverse event. If you click on it, then it will take you to this screen here that says SAPRA adverse drug reaction and product quality reporting, and then automatically you need to accept the conditions thereof, and then you're ready to go. Then the paper-based system, basically we've got two systems. One is the adverse drug reaction and quality product reporting, and the second one is the adverse events following immunization. And Prof will be touching on that. So with this system, basically you go to a nearest healthcare center. It may be a clinic, it may be a pharmacy, it can be a doctor's offices, where you report, and they will complete this on your behalf if they will not be using a MedSafety app. Then the last one, which is the main thing about this presentation, is the MedSafety app, and this presentation will actually concentrate more on the MedSafety app. So what is this MedSafety app that we're talking to? So it's a mobile application, and this mobile application, basically it was developed by the Medicines and Health Products Regulatory Authority agents, which is the Medicine Regulatory Authority that is based in the UK, together with WHO and what we call the UMC. Portia has spoken to the UMC for reporting of adverse drug reactions and adverse events following immunization. It was developed through what we call the Recognized Adverse Drug Reaction Project, whereby they were looking for digital tools to support pharmacovigilance activity. So it's an international mobile for use, for drug safety use, and it's used by different regions. And it's a two-way information sharing, whereby the regulatory authorities, they share their news and medicines watch list tool, while the public as well can report on the very same tool. And the app, it's actually available for both healthcare professionals and the public. And it's available on the latest app, Apple Store rather, and Google Play Store for reporting. So why did we saw the need to actually have the MedSafety app? I actually touched on it as I did the introduction. So we wanted to simplify and promote reporting of suspected adverse drug reactions. So according to the international statistics, it is indicated that less than 2% of the adverse drug reactions or adverse events are being reported for medicines. So in South Africa, we don't necessarily have specific statistics that talks to that. However, reporting, it has been at its lowest. So we thought through the use of the MedSafety app, together with the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines, it's an opportunity for us to actually promote pharmacovigilance and reporting of adverse drug reactions and adverse events following immunization. So we launched the MedSafety app. So MedSafety app is one of our strategies as highlighted to actually address adverse drug reactions or adverse events under reporting. And then thirdly, we want to promote pharmacovigilance locally. It has come to our attention that not so many people actually are aware of the medicines that they use and the effects thereof. So this is an opportunity to actually promote pharmacovigilance. And then fourthly, we want to strengthen spontaneous reporting. And we needed to replace the paper-based forms as they are cumbersome. And then what is of importance as well is that it strengthens data quality, because you can actually indicate what mandatory fields should be there so that the kind of data that you receive can actually inform clinical decision-making. Then what are the features of this app and the benefits? So it's simple, number one, which I think is of importance, and convenient way of reporting. You can store and save uncompleted or unsubmitted reports in the event whereby maybe you don't have access to internet, or maybe the signal is giving you a problem. You can always save the report and send it later. And then it generates an email to the user that acknowledges the report, that we received the report. And there will be a reference number which you can always use for follow-up purposes. It's readily available platform for feedback about submitted reports. It creates a watch list to follow products of interest. And then lastly, it is currently available in English, but we're working on providing it in different other local languages. Then how to report using the MedSafety app. So what one does is that they need to download the MedSafety app on their smartphones, choose their region, whether it's from South Africa, then acknowledge the privacy statement. So I'll say a bit with regards to the privacy statement, and then you create a profile, whether you're a healthcare professional or you're a member of the public. Then you are ready to report either your adverse drug reaction or adverse event following immunization. So what's important to note is that on the MedSafety app, there are actually two forms that are available. There's one for the public, it will say MOP, and then there's one for healthcare professionals. It doesn't necessarily, it's not specified. Then you choose the one that is relevant. And the difference between the forms is that the healthcare professional form is more in the medical language rather than the one for the member of the public, which is easy to understand and it will facilitate reporting. Then once the form is submitted, then the report will be available on the backside of the MedSafety app, which is the Vigilance Hub, where both the districts, the provincial and the national office, including SAPRA, will be able to view the report. If there's a need maybe for follow-up information that we receive, then we amend, and then we capture and inspect the data. So I thought I should just provide few pics that relates to the MedSafety app. The first pic on the left-hand side, it will be the landing page where you need to provide your email address and your password, and you create an account. And then the second one is the one that talks to the privacy statement. So on the privacy statement, if you click on the privacy statement, I understand the privacy statement. If you click on it, it will take you to the next pic where it says South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, MedSafety app privacy statement. So the privacy statement, basically, it relates information with regards to what is your role as a reporter, and as the regulator, what are we going to do with your information? So it highlights the need for us to have that information and then use it for the public safety issues only, nothing more than that. So it's very important that the public are aware of this and they read through this, so that when you say understand the privacy statement and you click on the second one, then you know that what your information will be used for. And the last one on the far right, it's basically the menu that talks to the news, that talks to the products, the watch list, whether you want to report or not. Then I thought it's of importance that I indicate the use of the MedSafety app. As I've highlighted, reporting has been at its lowest in South Africa, but through the use of MedSafety app, it has improved a bit. If you look on my far left, you will see that April, we had about 701 active users and 671 new users. And May, it increased. And then June, it went a little bit down. And then July, it increased. And August, it's increasing. So we are working, there's progress with regards to the uptake of the MedSafety app. However, if you look at this and you compare this to about 15 million vaccine recipients, you'd realize that this shows that there's still lack of reporting, there's still low underreporting. So we would prefer that we download the MedSafety app as South Africans and we use it not only for adverse events following immunization, but also for reporting of any adverse drug, suspected adverse drug that one may have experienced after taking their medicines. Then this is just a link to the MedSafety app. I would not be going through this because I will be showing it on the microsite, which is a communication platform that we have developed. And then lastly, I would like to show a short video, and I'm hoping that it's going to work, that talks to the MedSafety app. So this is just a prom video that we have on the SAPRA website to promote the use of the MedSafety app. We actually quite have a number. One talks to filling in the form on the MedSafety app. It will guide you through. And then one talks to reporters actually being heroes with regards to that. Okay. So in my conclusion, I would like to say that monitoring the safety of medicines and vaccines and communicating the risk is a critical priority for South African Health Products Regulatory Authority. And we will continue to monitor and inform the health professionals and the public of the up-to-date safety profiles of medicines and vaccines. We have put several mechanisms in place to ensure health products regulatory safety. Portia has actually alluded to a number, and one of them, it includes the launch of the MedSafety app. So by so saying, I'd like to say that you can play a vital role as well and be a hero, a safety hero, by reporting the adverse events or adverse drug reactions. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Flora, for that comprehensive presentation and the information that you've provided both on the MedSafety app and other reporting tools, and also the awareness that you continue to create on pharmacovigilance and awareness of medicines and their side effects, and also the tools for healthcare workers and also for the public. It is interesting to see the gradual increase in the uptake of the MedSafety app, and we hope that this discussions such as this one will continue to contribute to increasing its uptake. With that being said, we will move over to the next panelist, who is Professor Hannah Limeya, who will speak on causality assessment for adverse events following immunizations. Over to you, Prof.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for attending this very important webinar. And I hope we'll shed some light on many questions here today. Okay, so without any further ado, I would like to start off just by reminding everyone about what is an adverse event following immunization. And this is a very important definition. And if you look at this, you can see it's any untoward medical event which follows immunization. And it could be a sign, a symptom, a laboratory finding, or a disease. But it does not necessarily have a causal relationship with the usage of the vaccine, although there will always be a temporal relationship. So the event will always follow the vaccination. So the vaccination will be first, and then the event will follow the vaccination. So this is why we need to look at a cause and a causal relationship when we look at immunization. So a cause and effect relationship is between a causative factor and an outcome, with no other factors intervening in the process. So events that are temporally associated may not necessarily be causally associated. So this is something very important that one needs to remember. So if you look at these pictures, it is human nature to credit or blame things on a single major cause. And we often make the mistake of blaming something that occurred earlier. So we can commit an error of reasoning called a logical fallacy, where we assume that one event must be the cause of a later event simply because it occurred earlier. So this logical fallacy is the basis on many superstitions that we believed in the olden days, and the misinformation that is flooding these days on social media. So if you look at this, it looks like everyone who died drank water. If you look at this graph, to look out for these. So this you might have seen, but it's such a good example. So guys, this is really serious. I just had my COVID-19 vaccination at the vaccination center. On my way home, I noticed that I had blurred vision. I started to panic, pulled over and called the vaccination center for advice to ask what I should do. And they told me to come back to the center immediately. So what did I do? I had to collect my glasses that I had left behind. So this just illustrates this whole issue of followed by immunization does not mean caused by immunization. So it's important to understand that an adverse event following immunization does not equal an adverse event caused by immunization. So let's quickly look through the process that we need to follow when you experience an adverse event following immunization. So the golden rule, everybody always asks, so when should I report? What should I report? So now you have the MedSafety app, you have access to it, it's easy to use. So the golden rule is to report anything of concern. So if you are concerned about an adverse effect or a side effect, then you know you need to report it. So how can this be done? It can either be done at a health facility or using the MedSafety app, as Flora has just illustrated, or if you don't know what to do, to phone the COVID-19 hotline. And this will then result in either a paper-based or an electronic case reporting form. So with the reporting of adverse events, these events are either the mild or the minor events, and those are the ones we expected to see from the clinical trials, and they subside usually within 2 to 3 days. But then there are also the severe events. Now they are less frequent, and they can be either serious or non-serious. And all of these severe events are being investigated. So how is the investigation done? Investigation is done by district surveillance teams within the provinces working for the Department of Health. So they go now and they do a detailed investigation of each and every one of these cases. And as you can see, they collect a lot of information. While doing that, they complete a case investigation form. So all of these things that you see on this list, they collect in the form of evidence. So that could include, for example, laboratory results, clinical reports from the medical practitioner, which vaccine was administered, an interview with the vaccinator who administered the vaccine, an interview with the patient and with the family if necessary. So when all information is available, when the whole case investigation has been concluded, then all the information is now sent on to the National Immunization Safety Expert Committee, and they are then responsible for doing the causality assessment. Now, with the causality assessment, it is a scientific process that's being followed, and we are using a well-recognized methodology by the World Health Organization, as you can see here on the left hand of the screen. So there are a certain number of very important factors to consider when you do a causality assessment. And this means that you go through a systematic review of all the data, in other words, all the documents and the data collected during the case investigation to determine whether there is a likelihood of a causal association between the event and the vaccine. So now we will look at each of these factors. So the first one, before you can actually start with the causality assessment, you need to make sure that this is actually an eligible case. So that means there must be a patient name or an ID. There must be a date of birth and a sex. There must be a known vaccine. You cannot do a causality assessment if you don't know what the vaccine was. And then there also must be a valid diagnosis. So valid diagnosis means there must be a case definition for that diagnosis. So to give you an example, death is not a valid diagnosis because there must be a cause of the death. So, you know, if you don't have a valid diagnosis, for example, if you have, you know, a couple of notes from a doctor or from a hospital, or maybe no notes at all, and you don't have an autopsy report, you cannot come up with a specific diagnosis. And then the case would end up to be ineligible for causality assessment. So an example question is, did the Comirnaty or the J&J COVID-19 vaccine cause anaphylaxis in this patient? So anaphylaxis would then be the diagnosis. Now the second point is there strong evidence to confirm another cause for this event? So to look at that, you look at the medical history from all the patient records, and that's why you need all the patient records. Furthermore, you look at the clinical examination by the medical professionals throughout the journey of the patient. And then you also look at investigations, for example, a laboratory report or an autopsy report. So in the case of a death, one of the investigations would then be an autopsy report. In the case, say, of a COVID-19 case, there would be a laboratory report showing evidence that the person tested positive for COVID-19 and also when the person tested positive. The next one is then you look for whether there is a known causal association with the vaccine or the vaccination. So this means that you now look at the whole process first, the vaccination process. So you look at whether it is possible that there has been a immunization error. For example, was the vaccine used beyond the expiry date? Was the cold chain observed? Was the vaccine well stored? Was it administered incorrectly to the patient? So this is why you also interview the vaccinator who administered the vaccine. Then you also consider whether it is perhaps a stress-related response. So for example, in the case of where a person fainted, which is different from anaphylaxis, it could be a stress-related response. And this is common with COVID-19 as we are vaccinating adult people, and they estimate that approximately 10% of people have fear for needles and injections, so they might faint when they do receive their vaccine. Then to continue with that, you also look at the vaccine, whether the vaccine product itself caused the event. And this information you obtain from the literature. So this is known from the clinical trials, and you would find it in the product information. You also determine whether there is a biological plausibility that this event could have been caused by the vaccine. So just to explain this in a simple way, if you look at lung cancer, we all know that smoking causes lung cancer. So that would be a biological plausibility. But does lung cancer cause smoking? No, it doesn't. So that would not be. So just to demonstrate that to you. Then also you look for whether there are any tests demonstrating that there is a cause for this event. The next one is the vaccine quality. So that is also considered in each and every one of the causality assessments. Should there be something wrong with the quality of the vaccine? Should there be any substandard ingredients involved, or maybe falsified ingredient, or maybe a mistake in the manufacturing, whatsoever that might be. Then the next one is whether you look at whether the event happened within a specific time window. Now, all adverse events have, or most of them have, a specific time window, which makes it, logical that this would present. So I'm just going to use anaphylaxis as an example. Now, anaphylaxis is a very serious, severe allergic reaction. And that means that the vaccine recipient is allergic to one of the ingredients or the excipients in the vaccine. And this usually happens up to 1 hour after vaccination. It's very seldom that it happens, takes a longer period for it to present. It mostly happens within the first 15 minutes. And the good news is that it can be 100%, it is 100% treatable immediately with epinephrine or with noradrenaline. So that is the reason why people need to wait at the vaccination sites at least for 15 minutes to make sure that there are no allergic reactions. Then the next one is to look at whether there is any strong evidence in the literature against a causal association. So is there already literature showing that this vaccine does not cause this particular event? So this is an example, a very well-known example, and it's about especially the mumps, measles, rubella vaccines, or some of the other vaccines being responsible for autism. So there's already hundreds of publications out on that showing there is no causal relationship between vaccination and autism. And this is just one of the examples of a meta-analysis. And then also you look at whether there are any other qualifying factors. So did this occur with this person in the past? Did this occur independent of vaccination? Could this event have occurred in this patient without him or her being vaccinated? Is that possible? Also, then you would look at, are there any pre-existing conditions or risk factors that could have contributed to the event? So depending on what kind of event it is, does this person suffer from a certain condition that could have contributed? Is this person taking any medication that could have resulted in this event? Because medications also result in adverse reactions, like you've heard from Flora. Also, have the person been exposed to other risk factors other than a vaccine, for example, an allergen or a herbal medicine? So to give you an example, say, for instance, someone is allergic to nuts. So they get the vaccine, and then maybe 15 minutes later or half an hour later, they are exposed to, they eat something and they didn't know, and they eat nuts, and they are allergic to nuts. So that would then be, then you need to determine, so the reaction that you would then see, or the event, has it been caused by the nuts or has it been actually caused by the vaccine? So here's just an example where we then would also look at the background rates. This is very important with COVID-19 when people present with certain diseases. So you would look at what is the background rate or the normal rate or the expected rate of a certain event. And then you would look at what is the vaccine rate to determine whether there are now more of these adverse events compared to under normal circumstances in unvaccinated people. So, and that also plays a very important role when you look at any deaths following vaccination. So you look at the data and you see whether there's now any unusual patterns or spikes in this particular event amongst the vaccinated people compared to the unvaccinated people. So once you've completed this whole process, then you are able to classify the event. So if you look now at the factors that I've gone through, it will make sense then to realize that you would either then classify this. So if you find that there is a causal association, so in other words, you find that the vaccine was the cause of this event, it could either be related to the product itself. So this means it could be one of the adverse or the side effects that we know of, or even the ones that are, less common. For example, swelling at the injection site. So the person developed a huge or severe swelling at the injection site, and that would be vaccine product related. The next one would be vaccine quality related, and this is very, very rare. So if, like I explained, there's something wrong with the quality of the product. Immunization error related. So if there is a a problem with the process of administering the vaccination. And then lastly, a stress-related response. So this happens where people have fear of injections. Then the next one would be inconsistent with causal association. And this is also very common now with COVID-19, where these events take place coincidentally to the vaccination. So the reasons for that is that people have comorbidities. We are vaccinating large populations of vaccinees. Many of them are in the older age groups where they have lots of comorbidities. It could be a newly diagnosed illness. It could just be something spontaneous. It could be something that the person is exposed to other than the vaccination. So this is where I then also explained where we look at the population-based background rates. In other words, the expected rates for that specific event. Now, just to illustrate that to you, so Flora will illustrate the microsite just now, but on the microsite, you will then see the deaths following immunization, and that's being updated once a week. So if you look at this, you will see that there has been up to the 31st of August, 86 reports of deaths reported following vaccination. And then they, as I explained, must all be investigated. 46 cases are still under investigation, and 40 have been investigated and causality assessed. Now, amongst the 40 that's been causality assessed, none of those were related to any of the COVID-19 vaccines we are using in South Africa. And as you can see there, 13 of them had died because of COVID-19 disease, and one of the cases was actually a breakthrough infection. So these people who died because of COVID-19, they had already incubated COVID-19 at the time of vaccination, or they contracted COVID-19 shortly after being vaccinated before they could mount, an adequate immune response. Now, just to further explain about the deaths following immunization. So the non-COVID related deaths have happened coincidentally after being vaccinated. So as you've seen, all this data are being considered before we come to a conclusion to say this was coincidental to vaccination or not. And there must be adequate evidence for that. If there's no adequate evidence, I'm going to go back, then you will see there's 6 cases which were unclassifiable due to inadequate information. So if we don't have sufficient scientific evidence, then the case would end up to be unclassifiable. So we can't say it was not the vaccine causing the event or it was something else causing the event. So what is important to remember that we are vaccinating an elderly population, a large proportion of them, and we've also seen the deaths in the more elderly people. And they have chronic comorbid conditions in virtually all of them. And what we also need to remember is that the main goal is to protect these people from severe illness, to protect everybody from severe illness, especially the elderly population. But they are at a higher risk of dying, but they are also at a higher risk of dying from COVID-19. So if they are vaccinated in time, the vaccination can protect them, but still it cannot protect them or prevent them from dying from a chronic illness. Then the last category is then the indeterminate category. So this could be a potential signal, like Flora also explained, and may be considered for investigation in future. So the causality assigned to these cases could change when new or additional information becomes available or additional cases. Then we would revisit these cases and the causality could then change. So there could be a temporal relationship, but it's consistent but insufficient evidence for the vaccine causing the event or there could be conflicting trends of inconsistency with causal association to the immunization. And then the very last one is then the unclassifiable cases, like I explained to you. So this happens at the very start of the process, where cases could be completely ineligible, where you just have virtually no information available, or it could happen towards the end of the process, where you don't have enough evidence to say for sure this was not caused by the vaccine, or yes, it was caused by the vaccine. So thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge everybody who's contributed to strengthening the vaccine safety surveillance, like Flora has also showed you. And it's all about making sure that the vaccines that's being administered to the population is safe, and that also applies to the medicines. So thank you very much. You are muted, Mr. Sibisiso.
Can you hear me now, Prof?
Yes, yes, we can hear you now.
I was saying thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. It continues to generate a lot of interest, as evidenced by the questions that continue to go on the chat. I'll encourage participants of this webinar to continue sending questions through the chat. We have learned, or we have heard about causality assessments, the processes, the support systems and structures and teams that are available. This has been building on the information that's been provided earlier by Flora on the MedSafety app. And at this point in time, I'll ask Flora to come back and talk to us about the adverse events following immunizations, reporting microsite. So I think, Flora, the floor is yours, and I'll encourage people to continue putting questions on the chat. We're curating the questions. We'll ask them to the different panelists at the end of the discussion. Flora, over to you.
Thank you, Sibisiso. Okay, I'm going to share my screen on the microsite. So please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, you can see your screen. I think the only thing is if you can make, if it's possible at all, to make it a bit bigger in terms of the zooming in, but you can see the screen. If not, it's fine. We'll make do with what.
I don't think I'll be able to.
No problem. You can take us through.
Okay. So as Portia has highlighted earlier, and I think I also touched on it a bit, to indicate that communicating the information that we receive with regards to the adverse events following immunization, it's of importance, particularly because of the use of the new vaccines, the COVID-19 vaccines in the country. So we thought it's important that we share the information that we receive with the public. So as you go, how you reach to the site where we share the information that Prof has shown a bit on her presentation, you will go on the SAPRA website, and this will be the landing page. And on the landing page, we have what we call the e-services. So under the e-services, you go to the adverse events following immunization reporting dashboard. And this is where now all the information will be available. So please confirm that you can still see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is the landing page of the SAPRA microsite and AEFI microsite. So as you come on the SAPRA microsite, you have different tiles on the left-hand side, and that will indicate what is under each tile. And then you have a disclaimer here, and the disclaimer basically it's what I touched on, and as well as what Prof has actually alluded to in her presentation to say, it's important to note that the adverse events following immunization on the site have not been assessed for causality. unless otherwise specified, and therefore the events may not necessarily have a causal relationship with the administration of the vaccine. So hence it was of importance for us to actually clarify the differences between the adverse drug reactions and the adverse events earlier in my presentation, and what Prof has actually included. So on the microsite, so we have information that pertains to the reporting of adverse events following immunization for COVID-19 vaccines. So what we did on this page, basically, we explained that what this microsite is all about. And then furthermore, we explain what is an adverse events following immunization, and Prof has covered this thoroughly. And further, we indicate that most of the adverse events that are seen following immunization, they will occur for about 2 to 3 days. And then after that, they will actually go away. And then we also provided the groupings, the 5 groupings of the adverse events following immunization. And we touched on the Sisonke as well. As the rollout, basically, it started with the Sisonke phase 3B clinical trial, where it was monitoring the effectiveness and the safety of the COVID-19 vaccines among healthcare workers. And then we say, when did it start? When did it come to an end? How many people were vaccinated? And then more information. What's important to note is that the adverse events from the Sisonke study, they were not reported to SAPRA they were reported to SAPRA rather under the clinical trial framework, but not under the pharmacovigilance unit. So hence we did not include those here. So if you want more information, then you go here and then you'll find more information regarding that. Then furthermore, we highlight when did the national rollout start and with which vaccine and followed by which one. So we started with the Comirnaty, and then it was followed by the COVID-19 Janssen, and we also attached the professional information and the patient information leaflet or the fact sheet, those that are available at the moment, so that the public would have more information with regards to the COVID-19 vaccines that they are being administered. So finally, what we have included here is to say that what is the relationship between SAPRA, what is SAPRA's mandate, what is National Department of Health mandate, and NICEC as well, and what is their relationship and their responsibilities thereof in terms of monitoring the safety of the vaccines following immunization for COVID-19. And we also have a link to the MedSafety app. If you press on it here, then you will be able, it will take you to the MedSafety app. And then below that as well, we also have a disclaimer at the bottom to indicate that the information on this side, it's not causality assessed unless otherwise specified. Okay, so on the tiles on my left-hand side, then we will move to the definitions. We have put a definition, a number of definitions together for the public to understand. So as you click on each definition, then it will provide more information. But what we have done, we have tried to simplify it so that it can be easy to understand. And we have tried to cover the main information or the main definitions that will be relevant in this case, so that when somebody goes and check what is a vaccine, then they will understand what's a vaccine, what do we mean by a serious adverse event following immunization, what is pharmacovigilance, and then what is safety signal. So we have provided a number of definitions, which we will be increasing as time goes by. And then thirdly, we have a tile here that talks to how to report. So on how to report is exactly what I spoke to earlier, and is the MedSafety app. As you click here, then it will take you to this, and then it explains to you which phones can actually support the use of the MedSafety app, and then who can actually use the MedSafety app as I've highlighted earlier. And then as you click here, it takes you to the side of the MedSafety app. Then visiting your nearest health facility. So at the health facility, they can either use the paper-based format, or they can report via the MedSafety app as well. And then lastly, we also have the COVID-19 hotline where one can also call and report. And then we also those that don't have data and they don't want to save the reports and wait when they have data, they can actually use the other two systems, or they can also go on the SAPRA website. Then fourthly, we've got doses that are administered. So the doses that are administered, this is a link to the National Department of Health website, whereby it provides the information regarding the doses that have been administered. So we thought it will be useful for the public to have a one-stop shop where they have information about the doses administered and the adverse events following immunization. So it will be easy for understanding. So on this page, basically, it's the summary of what the dashboard from National Department of Health basically reports on. And I will not go through the whole thing because it's already available, it's publicly available. So it will talk to how many vaccines have been administered for the day. It will talk to the number of vaccines administered per province, and so forth. So there's quite a number of slides here that anybody can go on the SAPRA website and they will see, or they can go on the National Department of Health website and they will find this information. Then we've got the adverse events following immunizations that have been reported so far. So on this page, as Prof has highlighted, this is updated every Friday based on the information that we have. And it's actually about 1 week in behind. So we're covering from the 17th of May, that's when the national rollout started, and this is up until the 31st of August. So it indicates that how many doses were administered by the 31st of August and how many adverse events were reported in the system, and what is the total percentage of the adverse events following immunization for all the doses that have been administered by that date. And we also stratify the information per vaccine as well. So this is for Comirnaty and this is for Janssen. And as you can see, the percentages are more or less the same. And then as you go down on this page, then we have the number of doses administered per province and as well as the percentage per province. So for instance, in Eastern Cape, only 0.02% of the vaccinee has actually reported adverse events out of 1,389,343. So this basically is the percentage of the total doses administered per province. And then as we move down, we've got the adverse events following immunization distributed per gender and as well as distributed by age and stratified per vaccine. For instance, you can see that the blue part is for Comirnaty, while the greenish part is actually for the COVID-19 Janssen. And furthermore, we have the frequently reported adverse events following immunization. And these are the ones that actually we classify them to be non-serious in most cases. As you can see, our leading one is actually headache, followed by the local reaction. And then we have pyrexia, basically, which is fever or high temperature. And then we've got dizziness. So these are the top most reported, and they are also stratified per vaccine. Then we've got the serious adverse events following immunization. So on the serious adverse events following immunization, we actually provided a bit of background with regards to what are the serious adverse events following immunization? What are we talking about? And if we are talking about all this, why did we specifically at this point in time decided to go and only report on the deaths? So as time goes by, we will be updating with regards to all this, and some will ask us, why not the IECs as well? And the IEC as well, we will be reporting on them. So currently, because the interest has been on the death cases, so we thought let's pay much attention onto the death cases. And as we go, then we will keep on updating the information. So hence we went into the death cases, and Prof has actually spoken to this. I will not waste any more time on this because Prof has actually spoken to this slide. Then we thought of providing more information regarding causality assessment to say, the public needs to understand what is causality assessment, what is required, how are cases classified in terms of causality assessment. And this is exactly what Prof has covered. So I will not be going into these slides because Prof has actually covered all these areas. But as you tap into it to say what members of the public can do to ensure that the information submitted is sufficient to inform causality assessment, then it will inform you that we need the details of the vaccine recipient, and that is a name, surname, ID number, contact details, home address, all this information. So Prof has actually dwelled more into this, and I will not be covering it. But what's important is to say, anyone who's not part of this webinar or who has not attended any of the webinars that we have done so far, they can actually go on this website and learn more about what is required and how causality assessment is done and the classification of cases thereof. And Portia has actually talked about the frequently asked questions, and the frequently asked questions, basically, they are based on the social listening because of the communication strategy that has been put in place with the GCIS and National Department of Health and SAPRA. So the GCIS, they do what we call social listening, and then they indicate the concerns that the public actually raised, which are more common, and we address that on here. So as we move on, more and more of this questions will be answered and will be provided here. And there's a link that goes to the GCIS and National Department of Health where you can tap on it, and then you should be able to have access to this information. Lastly, we've got more information. So on the more information, these are just links to other websites or documents that might be of interest or importance in terms of understanding the adverse events following immunization. We've got the COVID-19 coronavirus news and information, the MedSafety app, the facts sheet, and the professional information. So this is the summary of the microsite that we have put as a tool to provide feedback to the public. Thank you. Sibusiso, you may take over. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Flora, for that comprehensive information, and also for providing the sources where people can continue to access and get data between SAPRA and the Department of Health. I realize that we are a bit pressed for time, and at this point in time, I'll ask Marion Sconfeld. She's a pharmaceutical policy specialist from the National Department of Health. She will speak on the no-fault compensation. Over to you, Marion.
Let me just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Sure. I'll put on my video to say hello, but then I'm going to put it off again for the presentation. Hi, guys. Okay, so today I'm going to give you a brief oversight of the no-fault compensation scheme, which is being established by the National Department of Health. So firstly, as a background, the no-fault compensation scheme for the adverse events following immunization occur in various vaccination programs around the world. So for the COVID-19 vaccine rollout, governments were required to provide indemnity for the suppliers against adverse events following immunization, which results from the use of these vaccines. And the government of South Africa decided to establish the no-fault compensation scheme. Therefore, any person suffering from a serious vaccine injury as a result of the adverse events following immunization will be compensated by the government after causality assessment has determined the causal link. So the benefits of the fund is that the scheme will guarantee expeditious and easy access to compensation for persons who have suffered damages as a consequence to the use of the COVID-19 vaccines administered in South Africa. Claimants would not have to be burdened by establishing negligence or wrongfulness by either the Department of Health or by the vaccine manufacturer. However, a causal link will have to be established, and therefore proof would have to be provided that the vaccine caused the adverse event. This causal link will be established by the National Immunization Safety Expert Committee, and the responsibility of the vaccinee or the vaccine injured party is to report the adverse event according to the normal processes on the documentation already described by both Flora and by Professor Meyer. The scheme will provide a mechanism to obtain compensation without having to resort to court processes. So some of the challenges that we've experienced in establishing the scheme is a potential opening of floodgates with the scope of the scheme and the criteria of the eligibility of claims if they were not well defined, and therefore we have published specific regulations and will soon provide guidance as to what exactly will be compensated, and the processes will be published for review to understand the process as well. Unlike other jurisdictions, the scheme currently does not exist in South Africa, and it's a new scheme that has been established. And we also had to secure sufficient resources to fund the scheme. And then the complete limitations of rights is impossible, and therefore the claimants will still have the ability to go through a court process if they are dissatisfied with the outcome of the no-fault compensation scheme. So the elements of the scheme is firstly eligibility, where only adverse events following immunization with serious outcomes will be compensated. And those are these that result in permanent disability, temporary disability, or in the event where the adverse event has resulted in death. The process and decision-making has already been determined, and I will briefly describe that next. Also, a standard of proof has to be established. Then the elements of the compensation is also considered, and I will touch on that next. And then the rights of the individual is also considered, and administration of the fund. So as I've indicated, the no-fault compensation scheme is based on the existing adverse event reporting cycle, where a person will receive a vaccine and then an adverse event may occur. The adverse event is then reported at the health facility where they will receive treatment. The adverse event will then be reported and investigated by the multidisciplinary team, as Professor Meyer has already indicated to us. There will be an analysis of this adverse event at both the provincial level and at the national level. And the National Immunisation Safety Expert Committee will then provide the causality outcome for these cases, and feedback will come back to the National Department of Health. After we have received feedback at the National Department of Health, the administrative unit that has been set up at the department will then be in contact with the vaccine injured party to assist them through the claims process. So currently, the healthcare providers, both in the private and public sector, has the responsibility to provide counseling to the vaccinee, which includes the risks and benefits of vaccination and informed consent. At this stage, all the data will be captured on the EVDS system that will provide the vaccine information, the provider information, and the vaccinee information that is required for the compensation scheme. After the vaccine injury has occurred, or the suspected vaccine injury has occurred, the adverse event has to be reported according to the normal processes. The adverse event will be treated in the applicable private or public sector health facility that the vaccinee will access as usual. Then they will complete the case reporting form, and Flora has already indicated that that would be either on the MedSafety app or the paper-based form or the call center. Then case investigation will be conducted by the district team, and the case will also be evaluated at a provincial level. This will ensure that all the minimum fields have been completed so that the case can be compensated if that is required. After NICEC has determined the causality, which is to determine if the vaccine has caused the adverse event, all serious adverse events will be investigated or causality assessed by the NICEC committee, and all adverse events following immunization with serious outcomes will be considered for compensation. These serious outcome includes any event that is medically important, that requires hospitalization or prolongs existing hospitalization, that is life-threatening, that cause congenital abnormalities or birth defects, or that results in death. After the causality has been determined, it will move to the administrative process as I've indicated. In the administrative process, the cases that have been causality assessed and that are linked to the vaccine or have been established is caused by the vaccine will then be considered for compensation. And the first step is to establish eligibility. So only vaccines that is administered in South Africa as part of the South African vaccination program and has been recorded on EVDS will be considered for compensation. Then the administration unit will contact the vaccinee and give them the outcome of their causality assessment and provide them the process on how to report the case or how to submit a claim, They will also confirm personal information such as the vaccinee or the vaccine injured person's ID number, their addresses, and any other relevant information which may be required. They will confirm the vaccine relevant data from the EVDS system, and they will check that the vaccinee has reported an adverse event within a reasonable time frame. So as previously indicated, it is recommended that adverse events are reported as soon as they are detected, and that the healthcare provider will submit these adverse events within a 24-hour period, and if case investigation is required for serious adverse events, that would occur within 48 hours. The injury will then be described, and the administration unit or administrative unit will also ask the vaccine injured party if there was any further outcomes from this event. So since causality has been determined up to today, was there any other events that should be considered? Then they will also request the vaccine injured party or their representative, like a family member, for instance, to submit a claim, and the claim method will either be digital or paper-based. So once all the information has been submitted, then the final assessment is done by the administrative unit that will validate the eligibility, check the completeness of the documentation, provide feedback to the claimant if there's any missing documentation or information, and convene the adjudication panel. Once it moves to adjudication, the adjudication panel will be convened, and what they will do, this is an additional panel that is a medical panel consisting of medical experts, also an actuary, also lawyers, medical legal lawyers, obviously, and they will then define the injury, describe the care that is required, and based on a standard compensation table or standard compensation fee, they will consider the following: the medical treatment cost, the unemployment compensation if required, the disability compensation if required, and in the event of death, the death benefit that will be paid to the family. After the adjudication committee has made this determination, the compensation will be offered to the vaccine injured party that can then decide to accept the compensation. If the compensation is accepted, the final stage of the administrative process, which includes payment of the vaccinee or the vaccine injured party, will take place. If the vaccine injured party person or their representative then rejects the compensation, there will be an appeals process. The appeals process, the appeal committee will be convened, which is another independent committee that will then review the decision of firstly, NICEC, secondly, the adjudication committee, and then the appeal committee will make a final decision and again offer the vaccine injured party either the same or a different compensation determining on what the outcome is. And then if the vaccine injured party accepts the compensation, compensation will take place. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Marion, for that wonderful presentation on the no-fault compensation scheme. At this point, we'll take a few questions. I must say there's been quite a lot of questions on the chat. I think the first thing to mention is we will be sharing the slides or the presentations with all the people that have registered, particularly those who registered through Zoom, since we have the email addresses. And also worth mentioning is that when people registered, we did share links to the information that's been presented today. So a lot of the information that you've listened to, you have access to those links. I see there are people that are on the chats. There's questions and concerns on the non-availability of that information. Those links will be shared and people can get further information and you can look at them at the comfort of your time and in the comfort of your home. We have got only 4 minutes till the end of this the allocated time for this. So I'll start with a few of the questions. There is one from Rory Sang from the Citizen. I think the first question you asked is, common adverse events following immunizations, and I think that was covered in the presentations. But then your second question is, what's the common cause of death for the 30 people that were found to not have died from the immunization? And that's directed to you, Prof. Meyer. I don't know if we have a response to that.
Yes, thank you very much. So, I mean, I can't now, give you all the causes of death for these people. But what I can say is that the vast majority of them had multiple comorbidities. So as you've seen, I think it was 13 of them died of COVID-19 infection. And then all the others, they were coincidental deaths. So they had multiple comorbidities. For example, hypertension, a person would have hypertension, heart disease, some would have TB as well, obesity, and so on. So they died coincidentally to the vaccination because of their comorbidities. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I think this is for Flora. Since this is self-reporting, and this is a question from Sadvi, since this is a self-reporting, how will we guard against unvalidated reports being used to fuel against vaccination? And this is being seen as a VAERS where anyone can report, and the number of reports are filled and used as sources of information. But basically the main question is, how will you guard against unvalidated reports on the self-reporting Med Safety app? Over to you, Flora.
Okay, thanks, Visisa. So as part of the requirements with regards to reporting on the Med Safety app, we request that the reporter put the ID number. And through the ID number, we're able to link with the EVDS to really see if the patient, the vaccine recipient rather, has actually taken the vaccine. So that's one mechanism that we have put in place just to ensure that we have validated reports. And as Prof has highlighted, when we do the causality assessment, we look into all these factors that have been highlighted with regards to the report itself. And we can confirm that for sure the report do exist. So that's one of the mechanisms that we have in place. I'm not sure if maybe Prof and Marion would like to add on what I've echoed. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Flora. I realized that we've only 1 minute. One question for you, Marion. How much will government dedicate to the scheme, and how long will the fund be operational, and who will be administering the fund?
Sorry, let me just unmute. The scheme will be operated by the National Department of Health, and the funding available will be sufficient to cover people that suffer from serious adverse events, as I've previously indicated, and it will be available for the time period until it is determined that it's no longer required. But actually, it's going to be there for the foreseeable future, as I understand. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. I think at this point, I'd love to thank our panelists. Issues around adverse events have been quite a difficult topic to discuss. Coming out and providing clarity and also addressing some of the concerns and some of the information that is downright wrong has been very helpful. And we hope that people will then use the information that's been shared, go onto the SAPRA website, go onto the Department of Health website to get more information, and also ask questions where there's some level of clarity that is required. With that being said, we are already on time. I'd like to again thank the panelists and thank the participants for the questions that you've provided. And I'll still reiterate, we will be sharing the slides that's been shared here with all the links that's been provided. Flora, you have one last word that you want to say?
Okay, thank you, Siviso. I just wanted to highlight that if we have access to all these questions, we should be able to provide the responses on the Q&A section of the microsite. So the public would be able to view the responses to their questions on the microsite. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Laura. And definitely we have been curating all the questions. So we have all the questions that have been asked, and we'll be sharing them both at SAPRA, at Department of Health, and all the other partners that we're working with. With that being said, I'd love to thank everybody that took part in this, and also the background team that's been supporting this work. Have a wonderful day further. Thank you.
Another